accidentally drinking from our paint cups while painting branches to look like other branches and creating AI backgrounds for our Golden Demon entries. It's the Vox Cascadia podcast. Welcome back, gentlemen. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm good, but I'm shocked at these rumors that there may be AI backgrounds at the Golden Demon. That's crazy.
Yeah, my sources inside the elite painting scene have said that potentially I think it's an Eldar riding a dinosaur. The background is not only AI generated, but printed and not painted. So I'm not going to say who my sources are, but it's Connor. What about you? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm blown away to hear that. Of all the places I've heard of AI art popping up, I was not expecting mini painting. Kind of a shame, but it is what it is. But overall, I'm doing good. Sadly, couldn't make it to Adepticon, but I think I went to an even cooler event this previous weekend, so that was pretty sweet.
I think you did too, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But let's talk Adepticon first. So, Adepticon, we had some reveals. We don't have our Nightmare box yet, but we have Termination announced now. We've got the Hernkin Pioneers. So, used to be riding tricycles, and now they're just walking around with their dusters on foot. And then we have the Gene Stealer cults and a big boy in that box too.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way that these two teams aren't going to be overpowered at first glance. They both look really strong. Basically, it's like Vetguard plus a few other like super powerful operatives in Brood Brothers. It's crazy looking. We know that works really well with Blooded and Vetguard. These teams have a lot of potential. They look real scary.
And Tyler, I feel like you're kind of the lore guy on this channel, unless it has to do with robot toasters. What is the Patriarch anyways? That's the big guy in the box. It's giant Gene Stealer on a pipe. Where does that fit in the lore? Do you know what they are?
Yeah, it's like the alpha Gene Stealer, basically. It's like so when the Gene Stealers infect the populace of a planet. Okay, so first generation is like they're the hybrids. They're all messed up. They look like aliens. And then after 4 generations, they look basically human. And then the first one to have a baby during that births a pure blood Gene Stealer, and that becomes the Patriarch generally. And it's an enormous Gene Stealer, not just like a normal one, but like an absolutely massive one. It's incredibly powerful psyker. Like there was one on Terra in one of the books, and the Custodes couldn't kill it. It escaped. So that's a big deal.
So Patriarchs and clowns are the only things that can't be killed by Custodes, apparently.
I mean, sounds about right. Like on lore power scaling, they're like sneaky and powerful.
And they've hinted with this box that the Patriarch may be double activating and be able to like mind control the opponent's models.
Yeah, that, when I heard that, sounded insane. I'm very excited for this box. I'm looking forward to both teams. And I'm really curious to see what they can do with the mind control, because if you can make your enemy's plasma gunner just shoot off the leader like turn 2, that'd be so bullcrap, but so cool at the same time.
And then it looks like in this box, you're basically going to have almost like a 10-person vet guard. And then rumor is maybe be able to choose from the Patriarch or the other 2 duders. I don't know what those guys are. The guy with the staff and a guy with 3 or 4 arms and the 2 little guys. How do you think knowing almost nothing about this box, how do you think they balance it? You think you can take everybody, or do you think you're going to have to take like the Patriarch or maybe one of the 2 guys in the Patriarch, one of the 2 like leader guys, Primus, I think maybe, is that right?
Yeah, it's the Primus and the Magos or Magos. It's very similar to the AdMech name, which is why I know it. But what they described is you're going to have to give up multiple operatives to bring the Patriarch. So I'm imagining it's something similar to like the Blooded or Vet Guard's like ancillary support. I'm hoping it's a little bit more like the Blooded, where you actually see it a little bit more often than not, because for all intents and purposes, Vetguard don't have ancillary support, which is a shame because I think it's a really cool idea. So I'm expecting probably like 2 Worm or Brood Brother guys are worth like 1 of the basic, and maybe like 3 or 4 are worth the Patriarch. And I'm hoping that it's not completely OP, but still strong enough to warrant taking, because I really want this team to fill that niche of like super scary model and then some basic bitches to hit the objective and stuff.
I'm really feeling like it's going to be a 10 model basic team, and then you're going to get to select 2 of the HQ models. Like, so you can either do the Magos and what's the other one that you just said, or
Primus.
The Primus, or the Patriarch. And like the Patriarch's going to be a 4 model. Like it's going to be basically worth 4 models. and then the other two are going to be worth 2, just kind of like the agents are in Wormblade currently.
What do you guys think of the flavor of the kit? So this is one of those second, third box out in a season. So you get one new box, which is the dwarves, and then the second box is models we've all seen before, but with an upgrade sprue. I really like the upgrade sprue that they've done with the basically Cadian troopers for this. I think it adds a lot of flavor to it, and I'm actually really interested in. Maybe it's just the paint jobs got me wanting it.
No, I fully agree. The original like Brood Brothers one was okay. It was mostly just some head swaps, but there's some cool heads in it, but nothing too exciting. This one, on the other end, though, it's adding in not only like clearly Gene Stealer cult bits, but it looks like it's going to be useful to actual like imp guard players, because like there's guys holding what looks like RBD shotguns and a straight up sniper rifle. And from what I can tell, looking at the photos, it looks like still normal human hands. It's not the mutated Gene Stealer ones. So that's awesome for people that want to make their own custom like Vet Guard squads. Now you have another way of kit bashing Vet Guard, or just having cool looking Imperial Guard in the first place. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm seeing a hand on their leader with the power sword, it looks like. But looks like there's a lot of furrowed brows on them and a lot of nose hoses, like some Dune action. Do you guys know what those nose hoses they have are?
I mean, it's the 41st millennium, so I assume it's drugs. Like that's the reasonable answer. Or, maybe stuff that makes them less susceptible to Tyranid gases or whatever it is. But I agree with both of you. Upgrade Sprue is killer. They absolutely nailed it. It actually looks like it has stuff for Kill Team specifically in mind, which is one of my complaints with the previous box. The very first box this season didn't feel very Kill Team minded. And this one feels the most out of the 3 we've seen.
Yeah, I said it when the box first came out, but this is the first one that when the box came out, we were over at a member of our community, Zipper Lips or Grant's house, having like a Kill Team night. So we watched it. It was kind of fun, like a Super Bowl get together, but we were all playing Kill Team, waiting for the reveal. But it was the first one all of us were actively enthused about, because it, like you said, it looks like this was clearly meant for Kill Team rather than being something like, these are 40k guys that we can make fit to Kill Team, which is a very nice change of pace after the last.
And I think the Pioneers are also very Kill Team. They seem really cool and really flavorful. There's a lot of like fun bits and just character in these models, much more than even the first Votan box, which I think had decent flavor overall.
Yeah, I think the Hernkin Pioneers or whatever they are have just flavor in spades. I think I love the dusters. I love the big fat like pistols. There's some plasma blades in there. It looks like some crazy rocket launcher. Guy's got a crossbow. I think they look super cool. I'm actually excited for both of these boxes more than I really am for the Nightmare box. Even good. And this time tomorrow we'll know what the Nightmare box is going to look like a little more as far as how they play, but up until this point this is kind of my favorite so far this season as well.
Yeah, until they give me Admech in the 4th box, this is going to be peak box, I think. But yeah, also, like you said, tomorrow is when we get the Nightmare release, or at least the first tease, which will be exciting. Hopefully there's some really, really cool designs, because I imagine you can do some unique stuff with both these teams, and I'm hoping that this creates a very cool and unique style of like Chaos Legionaries, but Night Lords. And then the Mandrakes, I don't know much about them, but they look sick, so I'm hoping the rules are sick too.
So like with us finally getting some rules for Nightmare, that means that the release is imminent. Finally, I think that we may get it at one of these points any day now. Actually, probably for Blunt Force Beatdown.
Yeah, hopefully they're going to be dropping rules this week. So, like you said, pre-order week after next, and Blunt Force Beatdown is in 2 weekends, so that'd be perfect. They tried to give us Salvation, but the Northwest weather did not allow us to actually have that tournament, because Salvation was actually dropping on the same day as our Adepticon prep, but the gods out there and ice didn't allow us to do that. So hopefully this time, I don't think middle of April. I'm hoping nothing natural disaster makes the Blunt Force Beatdown not happen, but we'll find out, I guess, in a couple weeks.
I mean, heavy smoke could interfere, but that's probably about it.
It's a little early for that. That's more of our end of summer events. So real quick too, I'm looking at the pictures of the Hernkin. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm gonna say it wrong every single time there's somebody out there screaming at the podcast.
Not only that, they're not the Harn kit, or you call them Pioneers. They're the Jaeger, Chuck. Come on, you got to get the Kill Team name correct.
Well, it does say in the article, but not all of them are Hernkin pioneers with the luxury high speed strike. No, okay, known as Jaegers. All right, fine. Anyways, one of the not necessarily pioneer guys, with the guy with the two pistols, has glowing blue eyes, and I'm really wondering if that's just a aesthetic choice or if that's going to be a rule thing.
I'm gonna guess it's like a robot eye or something because we know that the Votan are highly cybernetically enhanced. They view the AI constructs as equal to them. In fact, they're all just vat-born clones with a personality implanted on them, so they're not even real, like humans that developed a personality by circumstance and all that stuff, or however you believe the humans get personalities.
Well, I'm hoping that actually has something to do with the rules because I don't. None of these other guys have any kind of like glowing eyes or anything to indicate that there's anything special about them. So I'm hoping it's more than an aesthetic choice. So, and Connor, you play these guys and just put ball bearings in all their heads, and then you've got your AI robots.
That is unironically what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to be getting all of the little robot heads for them and replacing them. And I think, like you just pointed out, the blue eyes, the dwarves do have some psychers, so maybe it's something like that. But they were already describing this guy's rules on the stream. They hinted that he can apparently shoot before anyone else, which I'm assuming means like at the very start of the firefight phase. So maybe it's like he's able to shoot so quickly through psychic power or something. Whatever the case, that rule sounds incredibly powerful, and I'm very excited to see that in the game because that's going to be very fun.
Well, you obviously paid more attention to the stream than I did since I don't even know the names of the guys. So thank you for that little detail there. We do also have which I will always call the Sam Fisher model with the crossbow. Excited for that. Anytime I see the night vision goggles, it's just the Sam Fisher model to me. Connor, did you ever play Splinter Cell?
I actually did. More so Rainbow Six games, like Vegas 2. That was peak for me for Rainbow. Siege was all right, but I do know Sam Fisher, and I 100% agree. It's like the full Sam Fisher goggles. It's great.
So did you guys see anything else, any other reveals from Adepticon that you were excited about? I know we had a bunch of Chaos Space Marines stuff. Did you guys see anything cool from there?
I mean, the new Chaos Lord looks pretty cool, I guess. I'm not too hyped about it. I feel like there's a lot going on in Age of Sigmar, obviously. So they're kind of staying back on a lot of the 40k stuff overall.
Yeah, they got the new Age of Sigmar cinematic, which was really cool, and I like the Chaos Lord with the jump pack just because it looks cool and he's got lightning claws. But more importantly than everything else beyond the Kill Team reveal, they pretty much confirmed that we're getting Plastic Mechanicum for Horus Heresy, which just means I get more AdMech stuff. So that's all I care about right now on the reveal slate.
It could have also been Titanicus or what is it? Legion Imperialis, you know?
It could, but the only reason I think it's not is because it used the Horus Heresy logo rather than the Imperialis one in the article on the Warhammer community thing. If it's Legions Imperialis, I'll be happy with that too. I'd be confused, but I'd still take it.
And they did announce new AOS, as they're calling it. They can't just call it 4th edition AOS, which is going to be Stormcast Eternals and then some Skaven models. I think the Skaven are super cool. I really wish they'd bring in a Skaven kill team. I gotta maybe kit bash some Beastmen, some Felgor Ravagers as Skaven. But I've made an oath that I'm not going to buy the new AOS box because I have 2.5 boxes of Dominion and I've painted 10 guys from that. Are you guys going to be picking up new AOS?
Not ever. Well, I know it's so tempting. The last box looked good. I was like, oh man, I could make some Blood Angels with the, Stormcast, and I'd do some like commandos with these guys, and they got some cool bits, and they look different. It's a trap. It's always a trap unless you are playing it and you want to play one of those two factions. Don't buy the box.
Yeah, I've made a pact. I'm not going to buy the box. Again, 2.5 boxes of Dominion. I'm not going to buy the new AOS box. I'm going to stick with Kill Team. I'm going to buy the Blood Angels box when they finally release it, but I'm not going to get the new AOS box.
I made the mistake when Indominus came out. I bought 2 boxes. I was like, this is a really good chance for me to like just paint through a whole bunch of models. I was trying to transition over to oil paints as my primary medium. And I was like, I'll just paint all of these. And I felt like I was going insane by the end of it.
Yeah, I bought Leviathan and I've got some guys primed. I haven't finished a single Leviathan model either. Love the box, but I want to actually make the Reaver Lieutenant into a Reaver Sergeant for my Phobos.
Oh yeah, that's what I did. Shout out to David, another cool member of our community. He gave me practically all of the Space Marines in the Leviathan box that aren't part of the combat patrol rules for like $40. So thank you, David. That was really cool of you. And I absolutely am using that cool ass lieutenant for my Reaver Sergeant. He looks awesome. The pose is great. I've kit bashed him a little bit because I didn't want the Tyranid bits, but it's just a great model.
Yeah, I think Chris Fitzsimmons actually used one for one of his kill teams, and actually, I'm just going to keep go with the 2 knives and keep the Melta, not flame Melta, the gosh, what's the fancy new flamer? Anyways, fancy new
Combi
flamer.
weapon.
Weapon on there and call it good. I'm not going to worry about, but he cut his off and actually made it more like WYSIWYG for one of his sergeants, and it looks really cool. I'm not going to do that. I'm lazy.
No, I get that. Plus, the combi weapon looks cool. I like it, even if the rolls in 40k are kind of all disappointing now. The combi weapon looks sick. It's a shame they're not the greatest rules in 40k, where all of them, despite being like 9 different weapons, have been locked into the same profile. But maybe someday we'll get combi weapons in Kill Team or like in a bespoke team. I would love to. There's such a cool idea. Make it happen, GW.
Well, since we're not getting AdMech in season 3, maybe we'll get the Death Watch team.
Shut up! Don't you put that evil on me.
I'll put that evil on you. So, along with the Adepticon reveals, people actually played games there, and there was a Kill Team tournament. So, at the Kill Team tournament, there was a golden ticket tournament run by Games Workshop, and we have the top 4 here. Actually, the top 5 is really interesting. Some names we know, as well as some teams that we know and some teams we don't see that often. So first we had Shane Smith from Command Point with his Hyrotech Circle. I've listened to Shane a couple weeks ago talking. He was on Squad Games. I think he did his own podcast too, and listening to his strategies on Hyrotech Circle. I actually built my own this weekend, but came in number 1 undefeated with Hyrotech Circle out of nowhere a little bit. Not him, but the team. And then we had Adrian Martin with Felgo Ravagers, Leander Garrett with Veteran Guardsman, Orion with Gellerpox, and number 5, Jonathan Reynolds with Wormblade. Gentlemen, what do you think of those results?
And those are the players I would expect to see at the top. I think the meta is in a really interesting point. People are really kind of flexing into new rules or roles, with Felgor Ravengers kind of being one of the big boogeymen still, but not in the way they were at release. I think that we're in a great spot, and we're seeing new teams kind of come up, and I think the meta's going to get shaken up more here after this also.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that Wormblade showed up at all is really cool to me, because everything else there, besides Herotech, is pretty standard to see at the upper tables. Shane on Herotech, that's super cool. Not surprised to see him up there, but surprised a little bit with the team, but I'm excited for it. And Wormblade, that's just super cool. Clearly the buff has at least had some effect in bringing them back into the meta. Probably made them a little bit stronger. And I'm just glad to see him, because I always thought they were a really cool team that was just too weak to really warrant playing, especially with the expensive price tag that came with like getting all the models for it.
Yeah, I think Orion with Gellerpox is not really a surprise. Orion's been running Gellerpox for years and just as a killer with them. And then Felgo Ravagers, we've heard a lot of people talking about them, and they're starting to creep back up there. Maybe they weren't nerfed into the ground like we thought they were, or at least people pretended they were.
The community can be very reactionary to nerfs a lot of times, especially at the peak of the season, when you have a lot of teams coming out and a lot of competitions going on. A lot of commentaries about the very, very top level of Kill Team play. You're looking at like top 8 tables, that's what a lot of people are commentating on as what the balance is in Kill Team. And the game's a lot more diverse than that. Obviously, people who are going for champion of the season, stuff like that, are going to gravitate towards the teams that have a slight edge. And so other teams that are quite good can often get left out and overlooked. And then slight little buffs can rocket those teams back to the top really quickly.
Now I'm looking at the results, and that may not be the exact results because of weird Best Coast sparing stuff. I know that they did, I think they did 1 day of 4 games and then put everybody into their own pods, because I'm looking and like down at, we have Liam Garrett at number 9 with just 1 loss with from Plasma Sam with Commandos, and there's people above them with more losses. So I'm not sure. I'd be really interested to see how this all actually shook out, because I know, again, they split them up. They did the kind of Cascadia cut, I guess, but into a bunch of different pods. So I'm interested to see if some of those results are different, or this is just from the pods there.
Yeah, I mean, like if they're splitting into pods for day 2 and stuff like that, and it really, makes your first day results count a lot more. It can be really rough if you have no chance to win your way back to the top if you take an early loss.
Yeah, and I think I heard I think they were doing strength of schedule for it rather than just straight Swiss, but I could be wrong with that.
I heard that also. I'm not a huge fan of strength of schedule. I don't think that your results should be based off of your opponent's results generally, at least not until you take into account, total tournament points, victory points, secondaries, and then you can do something like schedule a strength.
Had some interesting results in the tournament. We also had the Golden Demon, one of 2 Golden Demons this year. There's here in the US and Germany. They don't even get one back in the homeland of the UK. And we had some pretty amazing results. I think I've really been paying attention to Golden Demon for about 3 years. I know it's been going on a lot longer than that, but I think even in the last 3 years, it's just elevated more and more and more. The winner, and if you guys have a chance, go to the GW website and take a look at it. The overall Slayer sword, the overall winner, was a model that was mirrored, and it looks like it's standing on a lake. It is absolutely amazing. Did you guys get a chance to see that?
Oh yeah, that thing was incredible. I showed it to a couple of people, like in real life friends that aren't even like model painters. They know a little bit about it, but they were also just blown away by that thing. It's just such a cool idea, and it came out incredible.
Yeah, that model was absolutely like phenomenal. Show stopping. I think that model painting is getting to a point where it's actually becoming like a full art form. It's going from kind of like just people doing like hobby stuff into like art, which is like what we're seeing with like that museum popping up outside of Vegas and stuff like that. A lot of people are starting to take miniature painting or figurative painting, as I'm seeing some people call it, as a true like art form that's equal to other forms of art.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen the Golden Demon winners, go to Warhammer Community and take a look at them. Every one of them is amazing. The overall Slayer sword winner, Alexander Dos Santos, he's been painting for just about 3 years. So while he's actually got I think he got a silver demon last year, and just like an amazing painter. Shows his dedication. Shows what you can do too. You don't have to have been doing this for 20 years.
I wonder if he has a background in art or something creative before he transitioned over to miniature painting. That always fascinates me with some of the people.
Well, maybe we'll ping him on Instagram, and I follow him on Instagram. We'll see if we can get him on the podcast, and he can talk about it.
Yeah, speaking of Instagram, first of all, that'd be sick to have him on. That'd be cool. Second of all, go follow us now. We have an Instagram. If you haven't already, it's this Vox Cascadia, all one word, all lowercase. Give us a follow. I'm going to be trying to post more stuff on it, making it more active, trying to do some more community stuff over there. And hey, we'd love to have all of you guys following us and feeding into my ego even more. So please follow.
That's what this is all about. It's all about our weekly session to feed Connor's ego. Except half the time we just crap on AdMech. Well, I crap on AdMech, but that's just because I love him.
Thanks. That's why I like Ben more. He nurtured my AdMech love. And speaking of AdMech, because I have to get it in, shout out to Vondo, a guy in the Command Point Discord. He was a top bracket placer, I guess, at Adepticon with Hunter Clade. And also, I heard from Zach, a community member, that a bunch of people knew his website, Disregarding Dice, and said, thanks for my AdMech guide. So that felt really cool to have people like from around the world apparently listen to my ramblings and say I did a good job at rambling. So thank you to anyone that has read that.
Yeah, I give you a lot of grief about the AdMech, but as you saw in person this weekend, I actually painted a Skitari, and with the guy with the big long rifle who's apparently on the wrong base, which is sacrilege apparently too. But so I actually am painting my AdMech.
You are. I saw it. They looked great. I'm very, very excited to see more of them. You are correct. It's on the wrong base size. So technically that is an illegal base move and you'll be fined $400,000.
Great. I'll just get that sometime between now and never. And yeah, anything else you guys saw from Adepticon or Golden Demon that you want to talk about? I didn't go to Adepticon this year. I've been the last 2 years, and maybe I'll get back next year. But we're going to talk about what we did instead of me going to Adepticon.
Just it looks super fun. I'll hopefully get to go out next year and meet up a bunch of other of our, or rather mine, but probably some of you guys too, hobby heroes. Always excited to see. I know there's like a couple of like not even really official games, but rather like homebrewed rule sets. Like there's something called like the Bits Arena, I think is what it's called, where like people plays like essentially Thunderdome, and if your model loses, he gets put in a meat grinder. That sounds terrifying, and I couldn't do that to one of my models, but it also sounds like such a cool old style of like just bits collection and bashing. It's such a cool thing I've seen on Miscast channel a bunch, and I definitely want to stop by and check that out.
One of the local conventions for Old Hammer does that. So you lose, your model goes into the meat grinder arena style.
I think that's a great idea for one of our tournaments. I think you designate, if you want to play, you can. You designate one miniature, you bring that miniature, and if you lose, you go in the meat grinder, and if you win, you go on to the next round until you go into the meat grinder.
I mean, that's a hard sell, I think, honestly, for a lot of people.
I don't have that in me. They're my little babies. I couldn't get rid of them.
Same, man. I don't know if I could do it.
I mean, I could do it. I'll just paint up a Skitari. And
yeah, I was expecting that.
Here it comes.
I think it would be fun if we made sure that it would be a model to do it where like everyone just paints the craziest, sloppiest, like wild paint scheme marine they could. So it's like it's just an intercessor. No worries if you have it get destroyed. But I'd still miss the guy. So I don't even know how I'd have that in me.
Like here's the thing: if you're gonna do it, it's got to be a model that has value to it to make it the impact worthwhile. Like no stopping halfway. It's got to be something you care about.
I don't know if you guys ever watched Play on Tabletop. Space Marine Steve actually did a thing called Kill Team Challenger, and it was from the last edition of Kill Team, where he would basically go in with a team of Space Marines, I think it was, and play against someone else. And if he lost, well, if he won, they had to sign his like Space Marine, his model carry bag. If he lost, though, he had to give them the team. And one guy he lost who actually took the Space Marine team and had it run over by a steamroller.
I mean, that's valid. Like a good, drive that win home. Show him who's boss.
I saw that. That also made me a little bit sad too, just because anytime I see a model get destroyed, it just makes my heart a little bit smaller. But it was a cool idea, and I can respect people that go through with the like, I'm gonna put, like the ultimate bet down, and if I lose, my model gets crushed. That's a cool like a level of like bravery that I just don't have in me.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun series to watch. Their Kill Team 2.0 series wasn't as successful or like rules correct, but it was actually still fun. They make great content. So we didn't make it to Adepticon, but we made it someplace else this year. We made it to ChuckieCon. And so ChuckieCon, named after myself because of massive ego. Actually, no. ChuckieCon kind of came around because of Vince Venturella has VinceyCon, where he gets some buddies that come over, they hang out at his house for the weekend, and they paint, they play war games. And this year decided that financially didn't want to make the investment to go to Adepticon, so I invited some buddies over and we had ChuckieCon. Tyler and Connor, you were there. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Eric showed up as well, and my buddy Nick came down for most of the weekend. So, gentlemen, talk about what was your experience at ChuckieCon?
Well, first off, thanks for hosting ChuckieCon and just being a great friend. It was really cool. I felt very loved. You clearly put a lot of thought into it. Felt very cool to come up and just hang out and play some games at someone's house and drink some drinks. And then we popped down to the game store and saw the kickoff of the narrative campaign at Mindtaker Minis. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to make it up from the Salem Kaiser area. And Connor, you made like the 3-hour trek down from Bremerton.
Yeah, I'm young and dumb. I'll waste time driving for like 6 hours in one day, but it was absolutely worth it. I had a great time. It was super cool, like you said, to go to Mindtaker. That place was amazing. I am shocked I didn't blow any cash there because there was a lot of cool stuff that caught my eye, but I was trying to be financially responsible for once. So I'm proud of myself for that. But it was a great time. It was really cool to see, like you said, everyone start the narrative campaign at Mindtaker. We saw a bunch of people, got some people saying they listened to the podcast, which is always exciting. And yeah, ChuckieCon was great. I finally, the highlight for me was my first game against Tyler in Kill Team. So that was pretty sweet.
So to talk about the highlights of ChuckieCon and give you a little con rundown. So Nick came down on Thursday evening and we just hung out and watched YouTube and bad television like we like to do. And actually I was lucky enough to get a set of the Fanatic paints and we got into those a little bit. Then Friday we had to go collect swag. So one of my employees at my job, my real job, actually helped me design a ChuckieCon logo. And my sister was actually nice enough to print out t-shirts for us. So everybody got a ChuckieCon 2024 t-shirt. Maybe we can get some pictures of those on the website.
I absolutely will. They were great. It's been added to the black t-shirt collection, which is always growing and always expanding. So thank you.
Yeah, the black t-shirt is a classic. You can't go wrong with a black t-shirt. So that was Friday. Nick and I, that was the night that I painted the ad mech. I got some paint on some robots, and I'm happy with how they're going. We'll get a picture of that up too. And then Saturday, Nick and I did some vendor shopping, meaning we went down into Portland. We went to Mox. I picked up a new box, the Callus and Toll minis. And then we popped out to Tammy's so Nick could get some of the AK third gen stuff, and then came back, and Eric Bell came and met us at the house. And then we sat at my kitchen table for, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours and just built miniatures. Eric built his Blood Bowl team. I worked on getting my Gellerpox finished onto bases with some basic bits. Built my Hyrotech team as well, and Nick built 2 orcs. So Nick is he's very meticulous about his building. He's the guy that goes in, the little grooves on the bottom of the clips on the weapons. He's the guy that actually goes into each one of those grooves and scrapes everything out. I do not do that. I'm not that guy. So then that was Saturday of ChuckieCon. Eric also took some time to take over my Discord for a while and tell everybody about the narrative stuff. We had a little bit of a narrative launch event. It looked like there was about 20 people in there. I don't know if either of you were able to attend that.
I was not. I was completely preoccupied with other stuff. My partner's car had some unexpected problems this weekend, so I was dealing with that.
I was able to make it. It was pretty cool. We had, about 25 people in, answer some questions. Fabi did a great job answering everything. So did Eric / Chuck Hybrid. That was kind of weird when I said, "Hey, Chuck," and his voice came out. I got really confused at my ability to read. But it was super cool. People are very excited, as we've seen already. The amount of narrative, challenging people have done, in our chat, to be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a dirty Van Heller to fight. Who's available at this location?" And already seeing people like, "Yeah, I'm willing to drive that day." Or like, "Hey, how about in 2 weeks?" has been super cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea of the narrative, is to get people to get out of their safe stores that they're comfortable with. I know that's a big thing for me, is that finding a store that I like to play in and then never leaving that store ever again. So we'll talk a little bit more about narrative further down in the podcast. So then Sunday was kind of the big day. That's where Nick was still here. Connor came down, Tyler came up, Eric came up, and that's the day we did go to Mindtaker. We went to a vendor hall, I guess. Had a little excursion, got to meet some people in the community that, like Connor said, we're playing some narrative. Connor got to see the glory that is Mindtaker miniatures. Then we came back to the convention center / my house, and Connor worked on building a little bit, and Connor was working on some Space Marines, and Connor brings out his clippers. I think they're Army Painter clippers, and I said, "Hold up a minute, sir," and went and got my God hands. And Connor, tell us a little bit about your experience with the God hands.
What is it to be akin to kissing an angel, or having that of the very being of sun come down and warm you himself? That is what it is like to use God Hands 120 SPN. Holy hell, Chuck, you changed my life. Those things are incredible. I instantly went and was like, I need to buy a pair after the first clip, because it's truly life-changing. If you do not already have a pair of God Hands, I cannot say it enough. Get yourself a pair. They're so great. I cannot describe into words how wonderful and just smooth and nice, and just such a clean cut with such little pressure you put. It's amazing.
I had a similar experience with my God hands. Eric let me try his a long time ago at one of the events that are our first events, and he's like, "Hey, snip this," and I snipped it, and I immediately ordered a set. I've since become a little disillusioned with them. You just got to be very careful. They're very, very sensitive, but they are very wonderful clippers.
That's because you're a big, strong guy. You work with your hands all the time. Like Connor and I, we type. That's what we do for work. We don't. You're like ripping out cords and working on, IT machinery, and we're just typing and pushing around mouses. We don't have the grip strength that you have, Tyler.
I mean, it is pretty difficult to turn a screwdriver sometimes.
I've watched some people turn screwdrivers, and I would say that it actually takes more dexterity than some people are blessed with. Now, Tyler, if you haven't yet, make sure that you tell your partner how much I love the sourdough bread that you brought with you. The jalapeno cheddar sourdough, fresh from the oven that morning, was amazing. And as a sourdough aficionado myself, I really want to talk to her and swap some sourdough recipes and stuff.
I let her know right away. It's kind of been her big hobby lately. She got a starter, she got set, and she's been baking away. So our house is full of fresh bread all the time, and she was very excited to give one out to have other people try it. So I'm sure she'd be happy to chat with you about it sometime.
Yeah, that thing was super delicious. Tell her again, thank you from everyone. And hey, if we can, try and see about maybe getting more sourdough jalapeno bread at hobby hangouts and tournaments. I'm sure everyone will be a fan, and before you know it, you'll own a successful baking business.
I think that's kind of our dream at the moment. If she could, just bake bread for nerds, that'd be. I think that's the life, isn't it?
I mean, I think you found the name right there, Bread for Nerds.
Tristan, get in on this. Also, I know you're a baker too.
So we talked about it a little bit earlier too, is Connor and Tyler had their first matchup. It was Admech versus the Hand of the Archon, my favorite. Gentlemen, you want to talk about how that matchup went?
Well, like all of the matches I play, it was incredibly brutal. I have a reputation, as some people know, of being a pretty aggressive player. There's no breaks. I'm full send all the time, so I'm gonna make you fight for the points really really hard. It was extremely tight. Connor put up an extremely good game. Really clearly aware of what his admech can do, and when they can do it, it was tight.
Yeah, like Tyler said, absolutely aggressive. I always like those types of games. My models are meant to go and kill and die doing it. So that's exactly what they did. Tyler, unfortunately, got the win out on me. I think the total score with paint was like 17-15 or like 19-17. He essentially beat me by 2. It was a great game. I was able to keep the primary scoring ahead, if not even each round, which was really useful. But Tyler's breakpoints with that 6-up film no pain on those stupid elves was just too brutal. Multiple elves living with like 1 HP, I think like 3 or 4 times, which ruined my secondaries. I only got 1 out of 6 because I could never score Route or Robin Ransack, which is especially brutal because there's a corner map. So it's something that should have been easily scored. But it is what it is. It was a great game, and I'm very excited for the rematch.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it also. I had a feeling if I kept you, kind of just barely ahead on primaries, or even close there, I could probably beat you on secondaries in the game. And it worked out well overall for me, I think. Next time, though, I can't let you push up so far with some of those units.
Yeah, there was, every time I looked over, there was just another Admech that was laying by the side of the board. So I thought it was actually going to be, I thought you were going to slaughter him, but it was a lot closer. And I do want to say though, I'm a little hurt that you brought the torment grenade into my house. I can still smell the torment grenade here, even though it's gone.
I mean, like, is there anything like more Dark Eldar to do though? Like, I'm just, I'm gonna let y'all know I'm playing them for the narrative. So I'm just like trying to get into the spirit, a little bit of like soft backstabbing, torment grenades in people's houses. Next, it's torment grenades in their operatives' mouths.
If it does make you feel any better, Chuck, he at least brought some nice bread. So hopefully the bread smell was a little bit like useful in wafting away the torment grenade.
That was a nice smell in the house. And while you guys were playing that, I played about a half a game with Nick where I brought my Blades Cane. He brought his crude out. Unfortunately, he had to leave, so we didn't get through the game. But it was a pretty fun and bloody game too. And he texted me later and said that he can't wait to play Kill Team again. So at the very least, he enjoyed the half game that we got. After that, we kind of just hung out and bullshitted, and it was really nice to hang out with you guys and just sit around and chat.
I agree completely. Like as like a full on adult with like responsibilities and stuff like that, I don't feel like I get to just chill at my friends' houses as much as one should. It's a rare thing in adult life once you get later on, and something I need to make more time for. I really, like I said, really appreciated it. It was a really great time.
So, and I'm also taking ideas for ChuckieCon 2025. We may have to move it off of Adepticon weekend because I might want to get back to Adepticon, but probably in maybe mid-April or something. What would you guys like to see from ChuckieCon 2025?
More bread.
More bread's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
More bread, yeah, I'd like it. I'd love to be able to have you guys around more for more of it too. It was great to have you for that one day, but just the few hours that I got to spend with you was just a tease, and I need more of all
Yeah.
of you.
Absolutely agree. Like Tyler just said, it was super fun just to like hang out with you guys in person and just be able to relax. Because most of the time when we're seeing each other, it's like during a tournament, so we're a little bit like, I got to play to win, or I got to manage a bunch of 30 something people playing Kill Team. So it was nice just to be able to hang out on a very relaxed time and just clip and talk Warhammer and talk like, what do we want to do with Vox Cascadia, and what do we want to do with like the awesome community we have, and how can we help it grow, which was super exciting. But as for what for next year, like you said, probably off Adepticon weekend would be cool. But also, I've been kind of like workshopping the idea of combat patrol games mixed with Kill Team, mixed with like 1K points worth of Warhammer for like a mini day of campaign. Like you do 1 or 2 games of each mode. I think that'd be kind of neat to try and like set aside one day for a mini campaign.
We could also like maybe we could move it to a little destination like camping for ChuckieCon would be cool.
Yeah, we could get it out of the Couve, as some locals call Vancouver.
We could do it like a beach trip getaway, or like a ski trip, like we're expensive executives or something.
I want to say I went up to the beach in Washington for the first time a while back, and Y'all's beaches are way different than the beaches in Oregon. Different vibe completely. Felt like Florida in the Pacific Northwest.
I'm gonna need you to explain a little bit more, because as someone who did not grow up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm used to like very nice sandy beaches, like actual Florida, or more so like San Diego and California. So, what's the difference in vibes here? I'm very interested in this.
Well, okay, so like Oregon, they're like very scenic beaches. It's like nature. It's cold. It's windy. Maybe there's like tide pools. Okay, went up to what was it? Long Beach, I want to say, Washington, while back, and man, that was crazy. People pulling up on the beach. Like half of the buildings, they're like abandoned or like rotting. Went into this one store, and there's like a hydro dipped real tree camo with like pink teeth alligator skull in fucking Washington. I watched a guy's car like almost get washed into the ocean. It was wild. Completely different vibe than anything I've ever seen in Oregon.
I have to say that Long Beach, as someone who did grow up in this area and someone who went to Long Beach about a million times, that's a very accurate description of Long Beach. Did you get a chance to go into Marsh's museum and see Jake the Alligator Man?
No, I don't. I don't even know if that's a place anymore. Half the town was abandoned when I was there, so like it was literally like barely coming out of COVID, stuff like that. Kind of a ghost town.
I'm sure Marsh's museum is there because I think when Marsh's free museum closes down is when they just have to like cut off the Long Beach Peninsula and push it into the ocean, because I think that's going to be the last thing to actually be there. I think that's probably, and I haven't been to many other towns on the Washington coast, but you're 100% correct. The Washington coast, if you go to Long Beach versus like Seaside and Astoria and Lincoln City and Depot Bay on the Oregon coast, are wildly different, even though they're just like 20 miles away. So it's not a great example for Washington coast. I know that if you get up farther into the Northwest, that you get into more of that scenic like tide pools and rocky beaches and the big rock outcroppings and stuff. So I apologize for where I grew up and that beach.
I mean, no, it wasn't bad. It was completely enjoyable. You just got to be prepared for it when you go.
That's the thing too, is I think that, I mean, I've never been to really any like sunny beaches. I've been to a Florida beach one time. But yeah, it's about like driving out on the sand and taking your truck with big tires and driving it around and getting it stuck in the sand. And then it's all of a sudden, tide's coming in and it's emergency. And I've seen vehicles get swamped down there and not make it out.
Yeah, there was this guy. So like while we were there, this guy had parked his car and went into town, and like the tide's coming in, and like it's getting pretty deep, and there's like people gathered around his car, and he comes like walking back up, and he's like clearly confused, and he's like trying to put his kids in the car like an infant and stuff like that, and everyone's like, no, 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 don't do that, like your car is like could get washed away here soon, and he's very confused, and it took him a little bit to understand actually what was going on. A group of people had to push him out. It was fairly entertaining. I think my girlfriend got photos of me pushing the car out of the ocean.
Yeah, it gets pretty wild on the Long Beach Peninsula here. So, and that's been your local Northwest tourism segment for today.
That's pretty funny. I've been to Long Beach. It was like right after high school. It was like our graduation thing. So I was probably too dumb to realize that. But having now been, ironically enough, more to the Oregon beach towns than Washington, I can kind of understand what you're talking about. Tyler. That makes some sense.
And when you say right after high school, you mean last year?
Yes, 100%.
So, Tyler, you mentioned when you brought your Hand of the Archon into my house and defiled it with a torment grenade that you brought them because you're going to be playing up in the narrative campaign. And the narrative campaign officially kicked off this past weekend. And so let's talk about the narrative a little bit. We've kind of hinted at it a little bit more. We were going to have a guest on tonight to really go in depth with it. We're going to have Fabi on, but unfortunately our setup wasn't working, but we're going to get that figured out for next week. So you guys are both playing in the narrative, or Connor, are you playing or just going to be a store advocate?
I am more so store advocate than I am playing, but I'm getting close to finishing up a team that will be ready for when people need to play against an advocate or just in general. I'll have one ready that isn't Hunter Clade for the first time in forever.
Tyler, what made you decide to bring the Hand of the Archon back out?
I've always been an elf player, like from first very, very beginning or second edition. I saw their big hats, and I was totally into it. I was like, these guys know what's up. Love a big hat. But, I worked really hard on the models. I really enjoy the team conceptually. I feel like right now they're kind of, they need something just like, because they can fall flat on their face harder than most teams. And narrative fixes that. You get to assign one pain token right at the beginning of the game with one requisition, and then I also get access to free command point rerolls every single turning point once. That's enough to make me bring the team out again.
Connor, you mentioned you're an advocate. What exactly does a store advocate do in this?
Yeah, so like we've said, we've been talking about a little bit. The narrative campaign, it's essentially just a double, or not double, but like it's a way bigger version of the Ashes of Faith campaign, where there's essentially two sides. Rather than being chaos versus loyalist imperial type forces, this is essentially like two rogue traders fighting for the Porteous sector, I believe. It's Porteous. I don't know if it's a sector or galaxy or what have you, but it's a really cool idea, and Fabi has done a very good job at making it happen. Where it's taking place over like 10 plus stores, I believe, and each of these stores is assigned like a made up Warhammer planet, each with their own little quirks and stuff. Like the one for my local store is Mazu, which is like a quarry world, and some are like agri worlds, some are waste worlds, some are hive worlds, and each of these affects the bonuses. A store advocate is essentially someone that's working as, like, I guess the best way to describe it is like a DM in Dungeons and Dragons, where while we might still be playing in the campaign, our job is to make sure that there's a set aside time for people to come. Like, my store is in the Kitsap Peninsula of Washington, so if we want some people from Oregon that want to come up, they'll have a designated time and place for the store to show up and play at, which will be awesome. And the store advocate's there to kind of help, explain what the bonuses for this planet might be, what some of the challenges going on are, take the scores, and help, answer questions of people during the games if anything arises, because narrative introduces a lot of crazy stuff. So there's going to be questions asked. But beyond that, take the scores, get them reported in, and that will affect the overall standing of the planet, whether it's loyalist to one rogue trader or the other. And it's really cool. Fabi's done a good job at trading these rogue traders, and now I can. There's my team, which is the Dual Brawl. Go Do Brawl. You're the best if you're on Do Brawl. If you're on Van Hell, you suck and I hate you. And then there's the other team, Van Hell. And so what will be fun is like each planet will fall under one of the two rogue traders' sphere of influences, essentially.
All I gotta ask about your team, the do balls, is do you guys have like a cool symbol yet and stickers?
Unfortunately, not yet. We're working on stuff. I've seen some discussion in the chatter, and it'll be even better than your teams. But you know what? That's regardless of team competitions. That is super cool to see people already getting this excited and making team stickers and team logos and like coat of arms. So we're not even a full week in, and we've already got this stuff going on, which is so incredible. So thank you, Eric and Fabi, for setting this in motion so we can all be giant nerds together.
So it sounds like the Van Hell marketing department is a little behind.
No, it's the do balls.
So it sounds like the Do Balls. Is that what it is? Do Balls marketing department is a little
Do
behind.
Brawl. Come on, guys.
All right, the dew balls,
I
the
hate
moist
you.
balls. And Tyler, you are playing in this. What have you played narrative before?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've ran narrative before briefly. We've had narrative events even in the past, but I've never actually put too much time in narrative. My life has been consumed, honestly, with competitive events over the last 2 years. I didn't expect that, to be honest.
So for the narrative, you mentioned earlier that you are a very what they call in our scene sometimes sweaty competitive player. Are you going to be able to turn that off a little bit for the narrative, or are you still just going to be push 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 for the narrative games too?
I mean, I don't know if I'm sweaty as much as I am aggressive. If you can't deal with an aggressive player, that kind of sounds like a personal problem. And like, do you think that the elves are going to give you a chance? Hand of the Archon is not gonna be nice to you. What you think you're gonna be slow and like I'm gonna come in and give you soft little hugs with my razor flails? It's not gonna happen.
Now, what if you match up against another like elf team? Would you? I mean, is there anything that will make you take your foot off the gas, just for the narrative portion?
No, I mean, like it's all gas all the time, and like that doesn't always work out for the elves. I got whooped pretty bad a couple weekends ago by Bob. It's all gas. But my rolls didn't connect, and that hurts. You can get diced, and the elves fall apart really fast.
Yeah, and I chose not to take part in this narrative. I've got some other stuff going on with Vox Cascadia and just life in general, but I'm excited to hear stories that come from it, and maybe I can grab a game here or there if somebody needs someone to play with. Mind Taker is my local store, and I think it's a gas planet. I kind of want to see if I can get together and I don't know if it'll work for the narrative. I want to get together my Beta Decima board and make some gas for it because I saw a really cool on Reddit. I saw a really cool guy who used like fish tank plants to make it like a jungle world almost. So maybe I can add a little flavor to their campaign there.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. For the most part, that's a good point. Actually, you're not part of the campaign, but you can still interact with people in the campaign. We want anyone that's interested, even if you're not really able to fully commit to join. We want you playing. Right now, we've got 12 stores taking place between two states, Washington and Oregon, our stomping grounds, of course, and 70 plus players signed up. And even though the week one is already like halfway through, we're still looking for signups. This thing's going to be lasting till May 18th of this year, 2024, in case you're listening to this way later on. But we want people to be able to join up until the very final day, essentially. We'd love to have anyone and everyone show up. And like you said, there's the planets. It's a gas planet, maybe. I don't know off the top of my head either. But not only do the planets have unique bonuses, but they're part of like three archetypes like mining, gas, and agri, I think. And as the campaign goes on, teams are going to earn influence points, which will cause you to get bonuses depending on what type of planet you're fighting on, which is really really cool because it's gonna mean by the end of these like 8 weeks, the game's gonna be so wacky OP. Like everyone's gonna have some crazy bonuses. Like this guy hits on twos, moves on eights. I can turn two hits to a crit. Oh, and my gun automatically has AP2. It's gonna be so insane, and it's gonna be so much fun.
Now, isn't there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there kind of a catch up mechanic too? So say that I'm going up against your team where you don't overcharge, you hit on twos or whatever. There's kind of a catch up mechanic built into it, so your super OP team doesn't come out and just blow me off the board, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. So, for anyone not familiar with narrative, a lot of the bonuses are called requisitions, and that's either stuff like better equipment, better guys, bonuses that like give you free stratagems, and so on and so forth. A bunch of extra stuff like that. Um, what will happen is if you are a brand new player and it's like week four, not only will you get bonus command points and sometimes some other bonuses depending on the mission stuff at the start of the game if you're like way under level than other players, we'll also have it that if you join the campaign, no matter which team you get assigned to, you'll get all the bonuses that team has already earned up to that point. So if for whatever reason you have to drop out for like 2 weeks because real life happens or something, no harm. You'll come back in, you'll be just as strong as if you were playing the entire time. And if for whatever reason we're noticing that you're having a ton of trouble, we'll try and introduce something that maybe like you can get an extra bonus or ways you can earn bonuses to make up for those deficits.
Yeah, I think the main thing to remember with narrative is it's while it's about playing and being competitive, it's also about the story that we're going to be able to tell with it and just having fun. So I think a lot of people do narrative and losing doesn't feel as bad, I would say, because you're still going to be earning points for your guys, and you're still going to be advancing this story along, rather than just like, oh, I lost in the first round of a tournament and I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's kind of interesting about narrative is both the ways it's set up here and in one of the other campaigns I've played, run by the great and always wonderful Matt and Sabrina Remy, is that more so than even winning, getting your faction specific tac ops and like secondaries is oftentimes more important, because that's what unlocks all the cool stuff later on that makes narrative super fun to play, because it's what gives you all the crazy cool tools. So sometimes if you're going like, I have 0 primary points, but I scored all my secondaries, that might be worth it more than someone just straight up like killing half your team.
Well, that's exciting. We were trying to have Fabi on this week, but we had some technical issues, so we're going to get that worked out and then have Fabi on next week. So
Sorry, everyone, I didn't light enough incense before the podcast, and the on the site was upset with me.
that was technical issues, so that's on you, right?
My bad.
All right, and so as per usual, we have some questions from the Vox Cascadia community. So let's get started on those. We have from Spanx, we have a player who asks, we're just starting a kill team scene in my area. We have about 8 players and want to do a 1-day event. What advice would you give to a first-time TO specifically for the day of?
I think that one of the important things for, let's say, day of, is that you need to make sure that people are comfortable calling the TOs over to you. Really stress that you are there as the TO to resolve any kind of issues, that you're there to clarify and help the game flow smoothly. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to always make the right call. Obviously, you want to make the right call. Have your resources available to you to reference, and maybe have at least one other person you really trust in your scene that you can have. We personally like to operate with minimum of 2 people, and then going up from there on number of judges and stuff like that, depending on the size of the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Tyler said, having physical rules is always good, and if you can, try and get printouts of all the FAQs and whatnot that have been added in, so you can have the most up to date and official rules. Beyond that, when going to actually set up a tournament, when you put it in like BCP or a Discord server, whatever you're using as to get the word spread out, try and put in as much information as possible. It sounds pretty simple, but you'd be surprised the amount of people that don't put stuff in. For example, make sure you list what type of terrain people might be facing, whether it'll be all open, whether it'll be all into the dark, whether a mix, stuff like that. What match play rules you're using, things like that, to make sure people bring the right secondaries. Because sometimes if it's a person's first tournament and they're not the newest or most up to date on Kill Team, they'll show up with the original tac ops, and unfortunately, for the most cases, those won't be valid, and that can kind of be unfortunate for a player to show up and realize they don't have the correct rule sets in mind. Beyond that, make sure if you're a TO or just in general, try and have some water, both for yourself and maybe for the players on hand if the store doesn't already have something like that. Otherwise, just be ready to have fun and be ready to make mistakes. You're probably going to maybe, or not probably, but you might make a wrong call, and that's okay. If you are doing the community service by deciding to be a TO and help set up this event, it's okay to make a mistake. Especially if it's your first one. You're not going to be perfect. That's kind of how anything goes, but just be willing to have an open mind and just be friendly, and you're going to have a great time, and everyone will probably be very excited to be able to play a full day of Kill Team.
I think it's really important to stress that people are there to make, 3 or 4 friends by the end of the day, ideally. Gameplay matters, stuff like that. Sportsmanship really matters, especially when you're building a community. Those things are gonna pull people in to your community and want to bring them back. Just stress, like people having a good time and just enjoying themselves and growing. You can be competitive and still be a great sportsmanship and still enjoy the company of the other people while you're playing and teach other people.
One thing that Brandon recommended was to think about your player skills, like the skill level of players that are coming. A lot of times at Kill Team Cascadia, our rounds are 2-hour rounds, but if you're relatively new, you may need to push those round times to 2.5 to 3 hours. And depending on how new your crowd is, once you've got a few more tournaments under your belt, your local scene is more experienced. You can start shaving those down to get them back down to that 2-hour mark too.
Yeah. And one other thing, always that's nice, if possible, having an extra person on hand that's there in case someone drops, or maybe you only get, say, 7 players registered for your tournament, so that everyone can hopefully play all of the rounds they've signed up for. The other thing that I really suggest, that kind of, when it comes to building a scene, is that try to work with your game store, to get larger prize support. Raise the cost of your event a little bit, and offer more. Tournaments are generally not just like a monthly thing. Make it a special event that people come out to see their friends and stuff like that, and you'll generally get a larger pull from your events. It being something that is significant and worth, that shows people that it's worth their time investment and stuff like that. They're not just going to play a couple games of Kill Team and get $20 at their local store. They're going to play a game and maybe win a big box or something like that. It just kind of ups the stakes psychologically for people, even if it's not that much more at stake there.
Fully agree with that. And beyond just actual prizes for that, try to at least give out like awards, even if it's just a shout out. If you can, try and give them something special on the side. But for either most sportsmanship or another personal favorite, best painted kill team or like best diorama, stuff like that. That maybe someone's not the greatest player, but they have incredible artistic skill. Just try to make sure you're recognizing as many players as you can at those events, because like Tyler said, make it worth to come out to know that like people in the community are going to get shouted out, and that's going to make them feel good and make them want to keep coming back for more, which is how you grow your scene and get bigger and better tournaments overall.
Speaking on that a little bit more, so our first events, they were like $10-15, which would barely cover the cost of, us showing up and doing our stuff, getting basic price support for people. When we increased the price to offer more price support, not only for the people taking first, second, third, but across the board, prizes are given out every round to people, just because sportsmanship every single round, larger sportsmanship at the end, painting, stuff like that. It really did grow the event and it grew the community, because people saw that there's just more going on and it's more appealing in general.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Part of the reason why I came back to KTC events so many times was at the first one. Despite not, placing, I think I finished halfway, 16th or something out of 40 something players. I walked away with a bunch of free swag. You guys were going around passing out stickers, gamer grass, fun little tufts. I think I still have some of it. It's awesome stuff. And of course, if it's your first tournament, you're not going to be able to likely to get all this extra junk and cool stuff, but have it in mind. Think about the ways you can grow the scene and have players coming back to back, because like Tyler said, players are willing to pay more than $10 or $15. People will pay some decent prices, especially if they know that money is going straight back into prize support that makes that event stand out and be that much cooler.
I like one thing that you guys did too at the first Kill Team tournament that I went to was we did donations too, as far as bring a couple of cans of food or whatever. So I think that's a nice little community thing that you could do to help people feel more involved too, without having to shell out a bunch more money. Maybe they can grab some from their pantry and add that in.
So one thing on food donations and stuff like that, these days with food prices, it's generally cheaper to do straight cash donations from a group, and you usually get better turnout on it. We found that that's why we transitioned from food drives and stuff like that to raffles and donation drives for charity at our events. It's everything's so expensive, and it's very difficult to actually allocate food to these food banks these days, because there's so many requirements and things like that. It's just easier to collect cash and give cash donations to places if you want to do charity. And if anyone has any questions about this kind of stuff, about how to get better prize support, how to start raising money for charity and stuff like that, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. We want people to have thriving Kill Team scenes. A victory for you and your scene is a victory for us and everyone else who plays Kill Team.
I guess that explains why I haven't seen the donations for food in a while. I know that we went to the straight cash and the bounty board to generate a little more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, I think the bounty board, adding a layer of an extra game onto Kill Team to raise donations is an effective way to do it. It's really worked to add extra layers and also keep people engaged and entertained throughout a tournament on there. And that's another thing that if anyone wants to know how our bounty board works, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to kind of explain it to you and things like that.
Yeah, the bounty board is a very fun idea. It's super cool, and it means that even if you're not, maybe you're going for upper placements and you just lost your first two games to some bad dice rolls, you're still likely able to walk away with something cool. Being the top bounty hunter is always a very fun honor and probably one of the coolest ones beyond like getting first or second place. And if you want an in real life example of it, be sure to come to one of our tournaments. We'd love to have you, and then we can put bounties on you.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen someone who's at the top tables take the top bounty hunter either. It's always someone midfield, stuff like that. Our community is very engaged with it and engaged with each other. So there's a lot of like rivalries and stuff like that come up from previous tournaments and interesting dynamics that people wanna see play out.
And Tyler, the bounties do add another layer of complexity, while not a ton. Would you recommend that maybe for tournament number 2 or 3 under a budding TO's belt?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get your basics, sorted out and stuff like that. Understand how tournaments run and what your community's like and things, who you can lean on and how the store functions with it and everything like that. But bounty board is something, or just layers like that can be added later on, obviously.
And we had another question from Jay Spake. So, question from them. Question for the Brain Trust. So, this must be for a different podcast. Intercession is often the go to suggestion for new players. As someone who followed this path and then moved on to playing Phobos, another 3 APL team, I'm really having a hard time adapting my play as I attempt to pilot larger 2 APL teams. It feels like a completely different game. Do you have any general tips or concepts for translating what one has learned playing elites when moving to mid or horde teams for the first time?
So I think one of the biggest things that you need to consider when moving from elites to horde teams is to not be afraid to die, but also, get used to the increased time and mental load it takes to play the team. So you're going from 6 models to 10 to 14. You have a lot more to think about. There's a lot more synergies often in these teams that are relied upon to deal the damage rather than someone like Intercession, who each single model is a killer and an objective taker in their own right.
Yeah, unfortunately, Intercession is a good recommendation for new players, but I kind of agree it can be a little bit of a definitely a pain to go from 3 APL to 2. And in your case, you went from from Intercession to Phobos. Phobos are like 4 or 5 APL, depending on what ploys you got turned on. So jumping down back to 2 APLs, brutal. Tyler mentioned it, the combinations of characters you'll often see. And while every team's different, there's often very similar archetypes of like special gun guy, comms guy, a little bit better at melee guy. And you'll learn that while the ploys between these teams are different, there's still a lot of similarities. Like you'll often want your comms guy with your gunner, so your gunner can move, shoot, and then maybe jump back into cover, stuff like that. Your leader is often a little bit better at melee and often has a slight bonus for your team overall. So compared to like Intercession, where your sergeant's just got a better gun and like 1 extra wound, it's sometimes worth with your leader to try and think about that like bonus ability, like Hunterclade's Control Edict, Casterkin's extra elite points, Novitiate's kind of double activation if she kills someone thing. Think about combos you can set up with like another specialist to follow your leader around to kind of help them with these combinations and stuff. Beyond that, one of the biggest, we kind of talked about it before in the podcast, but deployment zones, extremely important. Trying in your head when you're setting up deployment or first looking at the map, just ignore for the most part what beyond like if they have alpha strikes, what your opponent can do, and just think, what do I need to do to get my models up the board? Because that's the most important thing for scoring and stuff. Try and imagine just the first 2 turns of how are these guys going to move, and just for somewhat of as weird as it is, ignore what your opponent can do in terms of like shooting them off the board. Just try and start to picture the routes you're going to be running with these models, and that way you can set up for that. Sure, you might lose 1 or 2 to like a grenade or something, but overall try and be deploying in ways that you can make sure you can touch these objectives, and your first 2 turns are relatively going to go to plan before you start interacting with your opponent.
I was thinking about, what if you, knowing you're going to transition from one team to another, what if you maybe look at the archetypes for the new team and make sure that they're ones that you're comfortable with? Because I know that when I played Intercession, I'm a seek and destroy guy. So when I jumped to Casterkin, I was able to lean on seek and destroy. But if you're maybe going from, say, Intercession, where you're not as and playing something that maybe is more recon or infiltration heavy, should you make sure you know those first before you jump to it?
I mean, knowing your secondaries is always extremely important. I win on secondaries generally, I would say. If you look at my game history, it's always I don't drop my secondaries. It's almost always maxed out. So knowing those are going to guarantee you a lot of points in the game. But I think that understanding more than understanding your secondaries, understanding the kind of type of team that you're seeing. I was talking with my buddy Cameron recently today, and he was saying that he was having a lot of trouble with breachers, that he's playing them and he just can't get used to their kind of slow mid-range midfield play, that they're not his style, that he needs something that has a little bit more flexibility and stuff like that. So if you commit yourself to a team and their play style doesn't match yours, you may not have a great time with them.
Yeah, and I know the person who asked this question went intercession to Phobos to Exaction Squad, and that's quite the quite the change in play style. I think they like the models, but maybe the play style. And the team's not in a great place right now either, so I think that maybe holding them back a little bit. But I know that I myself went intercession to Casterkin, had some success with Casterkin, and then I went to Exaction Squad myself before they got any buffs, and I went right back to Casterkin because I was not enjoying that team, but I would like to give them a try again.
Yeah, I think Exaction needs some work. They should probably have more models realistically, because they don't have the tools right now to deal with heavy armor, and they don't have the bodies to deal with hordes. So you either need to give them weapons, which their sprue doesn't have, so they'd have to come out with an upgrade sprue for Arbite, or you give them more models, which is pretty easy to do, and let them take some more basic dudes, maybe make them like a 12 or 14 model team.
And they're really getting up in there in the horde teams. I wish they were good because the idea of just locking somebody up and going and shooting into combat sounds so much fun, and I want that to be successful play.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do it, you need to make it like 9 activations, 14 models, or something like that, where you have a lot of GA2 going on. So they're not necessarily like out activating other teams, but they're outnumbering. I personally don't ever see cops without a buddy around anyway, so it makes sense to me.
And then we had another question from Greg who asked if, with the announcement of the Brood Brothers, will Connor be converting to the cult of the Bladed Cog?
Yes. I'm definitely going to be getting this team. I'm probably going to do some AdMech modification on them because they'll say they are Genius Dealer Colts on my Forge World. So I might give one guy a Radium Carbine instead of a Las rifle or something. But I'm still going to obviously hold Hunter Clade in high regard. They will always be my beloved. And hopefully, if the Salvation rumors and that, the book that came out with was allegedly getting a AdMech team, I'm hoping it's something like Heretic Circle, but with Cult Mechanicus guys. I really, really hope that's true, because I will absolutely be playing those guys too. But in the meantime, I will be working on getting those Brood Brothers because they look sick as shit.
So is it going to be? Are you going to be using like Scutari Rangers or Vanguard heads on them? Are you going to be putting little bits on them, or how are you going to do it?
I'm honestly probably going to stick with the actual heads because I, at some point, need to learn how to paint skin. And Brood Brothers are a good enough thing where if it looks a little inhuman, perfect. They're not supposed to be human. But I will likely be giving maybe one or two guys some Scutari bits, maybe like a mechanical arm, something like that, to show that they're Brood Brothers that served on like a Forge World.
See, like, I think that your loyalty to the Emperor is waning a little bit. Loyalty to the Omnissiah is waning a little bit. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna like pick them up, and they're gonna be like just the Gene Stealers on my planet. And then next thing you know, you're gonna be like, oh, hey guys, purple's my favorite color. And like, let me tell you like about the stars. Can I read your star chart?
See, I could never fully do it as someone who already legitimately has mechanical organs. I have to stick with loyalty to the Omnissiah before he strikes me down for my hubris. But there could be a little bit more than anything. I'm getting the Brood Brothers because I need something for my Scutari to have practice at beating the crap out of, or when other friends want to try it. I'm like, here's a team, and let me just beat you up because you're dirty Gene Stealer cultists. You're taking my
I
favorite
mean,
pants.
That was the original box, was AdMech versus Gene Stealer for Kill Team 2018, which was a phenomenal box.
It was a great box, and it's probably got one of the best Canon Forge World Scutari on it. Stiggies. They're like all weird Xenorite guys, and that's why they got that sick black and red armor. And yeah, I'd love for that box to come back. Maybe box 4 can be AdMech versus full on like bespoke Tyranids, make everyone happy.
Connor, for the last time, a penis pump is not a mechanical organ.
You know I'm talking about my diabetic insulin pump, Chuck. How dare you?
Oh, that one too. My bad.
I hate you so much.
All right, we had one more question from Colin, and I think this is a good question, especially with the reveals of Termination. What is the biggest individual model, biggest unit that we think could make it into Kill Team before we lose the spirit of the game?
I think that we've already seen it. It's like the Cryptex and the Patriarch, maybe. Patriarch's even like questionable. I personally don't believe Custodes belong in the game, other than like if they were to come out with like an Eyes of the Emperor, maybe like down armor him a little bit, stuff like that. But like once you're starting getting up like 50 millimeter, it becomes very pretty wild in the game.
Yeah, anything beyond 50 is pushing it. That said, I would love this, screw it, make the Castellan robots a kill team, especially now that they've confirmed double activations going to exist on a single model with the Patriarch. Make it that the two Castellan robots each can like activate 3 times. It won't be broken. No, that'd be ridiculous. I think the closest we can probably get is like a little bit of what used to be called elite units from the Marines, stuff like Blade Guard veterans. Not Terminators; those are too powerful. They'd be like crazy Custodes. But
I mean, I think Blade Guard are even on that level.
they're a little bit, but I can see like Blade Guard being like what Custodes profiles are. Maybe not 4 of them, and ideally, if you could bring them, it'd be like in a mixed bag of like unique Marines. But yeah, the problem is you start to put too much skew and strength into a list that's already skewed by nature with so little guys.
I think you can go the Justian route with Blade Guard veterans, and because we got some 40 millimeter guys in there, and I think maybe you can swap out the captain for one. I'd like to see more of those specialized units, but I'm a Space Marine fanboy, and I've got a bunch of Blade Guard already ready to go. I'd love to see a Blade Guard team. Maybe I'll just do them like counts as Custodes.
That's what I'm working on right now. They're on the same base size, so it already works, and they have practically the same weapons. Otherwise, like any dream units you guys can think of, like 40 or 50 millis you'd like to see on too.
Old school Dreadnought, like the old boxy Dreadnought. I think those are probably 50s, right? Maybe 60s, 50s.
That could be cool for, hey, Fabby, idea, narrative campaign mission. Go kill a Chaos and Dreadnought or whatever they're called. Or like a Chaos Armature.
We've already done that, actually. We did it for Killscream 1, second day, full narrative campaign. Final boss was either Dreadnought or Lord Discordant if you were in the final room.
Oh, Lord Discordant? Are you serious? That's such a cool idea.
It got murked so hard.
Really?
I mean, like you had 2 teams. They were all like, oh, let's kill this guy right here,
So how did that work? Was it the 2 teams could fight each other, or the 2 teams could fight the boss battle, basically?
Yeah, I mean, like there was incentive for them to fight each other, but also to kill the boss on it. And I mean, ultimately it was kill the boss really fast. We learned quite a bit from that, and we saw kind of a variation of that at Killscream 2 on our narrative second day or first day.
Nice. That sounds really cool. And see, my thought process for how you solve from the teams killing the boss right away, or like knowing that that's what they have to do. So I've always loved the idea. Spoiler alert for if I ever do this, where you have 2 teams like fighting to unlock a vault and tell them that in reality there's like secret archaeotech or like a bunch of resources inside it. And so like you have missions where it's like you have to go and unlock 2 buttons. Or like unlock some terminals and then go and press the button at the vault. And what I would love to do is have like off table the vault door and somehow make it like I can physically remove the door or like lower it down, and inside of it is like a Chaos Knight Armiger or like a Lord Discordant. So now that they've already kind of fought each other and are at a weaker state, give the players the option of you can dip and none of your models that like escape at this point are going to have to make casualty tests. Or you can take the extremely risky option of trying to kill this thing. And if you do, you're going to gain like a full level of XP on every guy. But we're talking about a 70 plus wound model here that hits on like threes with like scary ass guns. And I think that'd be a really, really fun idea. I just got to figure out how to make a working vault door.
Should look at Tabletop Time. They did a video. They made a hangar door that was actually functioning for their Thunderhawk, I think it was, for their Space Bears army. And I think it had, I'm pretty sure it had working doors on it. So I'll send you the link for that.
Thank you. That sounds really cool. I'd have to check that out because maybe some point I'll do that. That'd be fun to do. Or maybe we'll do it for Killscream 3. Who knows?
Well, gentlemen, it's about that time where we shill for the podcast. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate talking to y'all. It was great to see you again this weekend. So I'm Chuck at Painting Cave Minis. Our killteamcascadia.com is where you can find all of our events. And we have Blunt Force Beatdown coming on April 20th. We only have about 5 tickets left, I believe. So there's a few spots left, and it's going to be a great tournament at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon here. Tyler, where can people find you?
You can find me on any Discord that talks about Kill Team for the most part, or on Instagram at Lowbrow Minis, at dicethrower.bigcartel.com. Still waiting on some art to show up to get those new shirts out to y'all, so I can get pre-orders up and show you what I've been working on.
Yeah, after the ChuckieCon 2024, great success. Tyler shared some of the future ideas he has for shirts, and I am very excited to see all of them.
Connor's been brought into the merchandise inner circle too. He earned his ticket into the
ChuckieCon was actually a cult initiation for me. It was pretty fun.
You're not supposed to talk about it, dude.
Oh,
that's how cults work.
Oh, my bad. I mean, it was a friendly hangout where we played Kill Team and didn't do any cult related behavior.
And then Connor, besides ruining our cult, where can people find you?
At Spanaway, SPANNAWAY on everything. And beyond that, you can find all of us now, like I mentioned earlier, Vox Cascadia. Just all one word on Instagram. We'll be posting a bunch of stuff there, and we'd love to see you.
Awesome. Well, again, gentlemen, thank you so much. And one final note about ChuckieCon and for how much the Omnissiah has left Connor. I was making Connor a Totino's pizza, and the Totino's pizza broke my oven. Now, if that's not telling you that the mechanical god has left Connor, then I don't know what else will.
Except the Rising Tendril, Connor.
Maybe I'll have to get like some weird squid on pizza, and that way I'll be the Rising Cog.
You do seem like a kind of squid on pizza guy.